Yeah, the stream started. Let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. I probably should have done this beforehand. Um, so give 1 second. Okay. All right, cool. Just finishing up the organization, my OBS stream. Okay, cool. Should be right now. Okay. So I'm talking about page 80 through 96, 80 through 86. Talking about New England family. So let's begin, I guess. Families. What are families in New England? Families were the sort of they are the formal social unit, right? They're the most principal social unit. You go from families to tribes to communities to nations. So households were typically rather large in New England. They normally had a decent amount of children, and they're valued for multiple reasons. One, they were valued for the fact that they were children would start working at about 12 in various disciplines. For example, children would sort of have private tutors until a certain age, and then they would sort of work with their parents on whatever business they were doing, or they would send them off to work with sort of mentors, sort of like a modern day internship. So men sort of held authority over family decisions, property, and also religion, while women sort of had the complete authority over the domestic sphere, such as cooking, cleaning, child rearing. What's another domestic task? Like weaving, I guess, like stitching. Marriages could like sort of could be utilitarian at times if they wanted to consolidate two families' wealth. They'll put a marriage in. So towns. That's the second topic. Life in New England towns. Towns were often close knit communities, and they were always also often built in this sort of structure. Wait, I'll actually pull it up on MS Paint, and then I'll like show you like what that sort of structure looks like. Okay, 1 sec. Oh, MS Paint doesn't render properly. 1 second. I should have probably done this before. My bad. Okay. I didn't mean to not do this ahead of time. Okay. Okay, so let me just make myself a little bit smaller. Okay. So let's imagine that this is the town, right? This is that complete area of the town. This is what it would look like. So in the center, there would be a sort of common area or green. Um, there would be a green. And then around it, there would be various towns, one one by one around the. Wait, what? One by one, and then these would be around a common green. So this would be the green. And often they would be sort of social activities around the green. And they would also have some sort of fortified structure around the gaps of the wall. So it would be reasonably defensible. It would sort of be something like this where they had gates here. These would be gates. Wait, can you see my screen? Okay, cool. Yeah, these would be gates. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you guys. So these would be sort of gates. So in case if an enemy were to, it was also on tended to be in rather flat locations, so they could have plantations around the town in all directions. So let's say some enemies did come, right? Let's say these were enemies and they would start attacking the plantations. They would have to drive up through. So these guys would retreat through the gates, close the gates behind them, and then it would be reasonably defensible. They were very intelligent in that they were able to their manage their defenses and their resources rather well. Um, and something else is that They would have they would have often a church or chapel reasonably near the green so that it would have access for all these people to come pray and get back to their work at a in a timely manner. Okay, so let's keep moving. I don't think we need to keep wasting time. Halfway covenant. So there were like there weren't a lot of conversions happening, so they wanted to maintain church membership. So basically, baptized children of church members were basically allowed to be baptized and participate partially in church life without like a full 100% conversion experience. So there's a sort of an interplay between the moral standards that they wanted to maintain and the pragmatism of trying to convert as many peoples. Salem witch trials basically it was a period of mass hysteria fueled by thing. Let me just give it a second. How do I add a board? Okay. It was Salem witch trials were sort of there was some mass hysteria that was fueled by religious tensions and uh, religious fanaticism, weekly political New England way of life. Life was settled around religion, community, moral discipline, uh, work and economy, hard work, thrift, and self sufficiency were valued. Social norms, community enforcement of rules, strict moral codes, recreation, not too much, but there were obviously community gatherings. I guess you can see I drew that green sort of. So around the green, they would have often community gatherings. A lot of them would be religious in nature too. They would go out and do religious events, communion, mass. Those were all times for actually leisure in that time period. It's sort of a lot different to what we would imagine as leisure in our modern day life. Daily life, okay, life was frankly hard. There were really harsh winters. So let me draw some snow. Snow, winter, not easy. And that is the truth of the matter. The winters were harsh. They were harsh and harsh and harsh. And they had often homespun clothing and simple diets. They relied on cooperation and often they worked with Native Americans to get local knowledge to survive. Yeah, New England rely on family and so okay. So my takeaways from this. How does this relate to my? What did I find most surprising? I guess. Well, it's hard. I was gonna say the Salem witch trials. That was my initial thought, but then now as I consider it, is it truly surprising if I already knew it was there? Because I already had obviously preconceived, not pre. I'd already had preconceptions about the Salem witch trials, some of which were vindicated, some which weren't. But I already had sort of preconceptions. So this is sort of a very, very difficult question to answer. And town organization, I sort of already had knew that, but I guess the halfway covenant it was surprising generally because I just didn't know that. It's surprising that the church of the time was sort of decreasing its sort of standards in order to maintain conversion rates and populations of religious populations. Okay. So what else? How does this relate to my daily life? I suppose the Salem witch trials teaches us not to be fanatics and constantly question everything we're doing. Right. It tells us to be logical, and there's a famous razor by called everyone knows Occam's razor, but there's something known as Hitchens razor. Hitchens razor basically says that which can be um, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without it. So basically, something that can be, if you can claim it without evidence, you can dismiss that idea without evidence. And I think that's really interesting because it's often used to sort of combat this sort of fanaticism. And Christopher Hitchens himself, he was a really fierce polemicist who, well, who was Hitchens? I don't know why I'm covering this, but he was sort of a fierce polemicist. And this is a quote that I really like, and sort of resonates with me because it's really important way to look at your life. And if you ever heard, what was his name? What was the guy's name? 1 second. Let me think. I remember this. There's this sort of litany, really famous sort of litany, right? There's a thing called known as the Litany of Tarski, which is rather interesting. If you guys Google it, you might see it. It's sort of this one of the Bay Area rationalist movements upon a time, and basically what it was, but basically the litany itself, it was basically saying, if something is true, I want to believe it's true. So it just tells you that you want to be ruthless in your pursuit of rational truth, and I think that's what the Salem witch trials can teach us to be more like, because the truth is often, even if it's not unpleasant, it's something that which should be sought for its own purpose. Thank you for watching. Yeah, thank you guys.